Hey guys, welcome back to the Betar Project. I'm your host, Nick Betar. Today we are joined by Nick Bracks. Hopefully we can get it done this time, mate. Last time the internet stuffed up, but welcome back and grateful to have you on.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, last time we had problems with the internet when I was in Vancouver, so seems to be all clear now. So it's good to be back.
Awesome. As you know, I like to start my podcast with grateful. So what are you grateful for today?
What am I grateful for? I'm just grateful to be fit and healthy and back in New York right now, and yeah, happy about that.
What's life like in New York? Is it busy, the hustle and bustle, or?
It is. It's almost back to normal. So it's pretty full on. Like that was why I had a break from here as well, because it's a lot of hustle and bustle, and it's back to sort of everything's open here. So it's very full on.
Awesome. And for people who don't know, you want to kind of introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, no problem. So I work in the area of mental health and well-being, and in the entertainment industry, and I've been in both of those industries for over 10 years, and fell into the mental health work from my own personal experience and battle with depression and anxiety. And it was something that I had sort of dealt with from quite a young age. And that sort of climax when I'd finished at school and I was off the rails for a number of years, and subsequently led to me getting into the awareness work that I was doing. And I was on different TV shows, had the opportunity to speak out about my own story. And that led to me then getting asked to talk at more schools, and eventually build my own seminar company and educational programs in that area. And sort of concurrently with that, I've been in the entertainment industry and pursued a career as an actor, and was on Neighbours for a couple of years, and sort of overseas now, combining the two things. And that's sort of what I do. And my main goal is just to get as many, if I can help even one person through these messages, that's what I want to do. And it's what I've been sort of trying to do from day one. So just, over in New York now, trying to spread the message farther and wider.
Awesome. And you're originally from Melbourne, Australia. What was your upbringing like?
From Melbourne, yep. So my upbringing, I grew up in a family that, so my dad was a well-known politician, and grew up in a pretty unique circumstances, I guess, having my family be quite known and, growing up in that environment. So but had a good upbringing, grew up in Melbourne, very into sports. I mean, it was, like I said, a unique upbringing, having, a well-known father, but it was, mostly good.
I got a question for you. Going back to when you're a child, imagine if your dad was premier in these current times. How do you think that would affect you and your family, especially having to deal with all the COVID stuff?
It would be tough. I mean, it would affect you massively. I think it affects families regardless. So yeah, it'd be a lot to have to deal with that, and having, that lens. And yeah, it would be pretty tough. Definitely not envious of, the politicians that are having to deal with it and their families. It would be a lot to go through.
Yeah, it's a tough gig, especially in times, you're getting slants from all different angles. You can't just cop a break.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, it's a lot, never ending.
Exactly. And growing up, you said you wanted to be a professional athlete. Was that mid-distance running, and was it AFL?
Yeah, originally AFL, and then I became so fit through competing in that I wanted to become a middle distance runner, and put all of my energy into that, and competed at a national level. And it became, compulsive. I was training for 6-7 hours a day as, a very young kid, and pushing myself into the ground, really. So it's sort of something that eventually led to me getting injured and not being able to continue, and having to stop with the sport. But yeah, it was probably the first really severe sign of that kind of overthinking, and, that coming out in that way, and, led to a whole range of different things down the track.
And why do you think you had to push yourself to those limits and really train that hard to, perform at a level that you wanted to perform at?
I put a lot of pressure on myself. I mean, my mind, I was overthinking a lot. I had a very overactive mind that I didn't have the knowledge or education to know how to manage that. So that sort of started coming out in sport, and overtraining and doing all of these extreme behaviors to try and calm my mind. So that was really why it came out, and I didn't know any better, really. And it wasn't until later on down the track that I looked back that I could see that, but I didn't have that understanding or, knowledge at the time. So to gain why I think it's important that we, talk about these things and are educated in it so we can, prevent that from happening.
It must be a Nick thing to like have anxiety and overthinking and stuff like that. Cause, I had similar upbringing. Like I'd always overthink stuff, have heaps of anxiety, and I only learned about it recently that that's what I had. I just thought, it was normal for me to go through those things. And on the same token, I felt like I was different because I went through those things as well. And it made me
Yeah.
feel like I didn't quite belong. I felt like I was different. So I just kept to myself, and I was naturally shy and introverted anyway. But until recently, realizing that's actually kind of a superpower in a way. And now I use that anxiety and that fear to really push past those barriers and achieve what I'm achieving and doing podcasts and stuff. So
Yeah.
when you learn how to use it and use that fear to really help you, it becomes powerful.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Exactly. If you can, it can sort of go both ways, it can go in a negative spiral or in a positive way. And if, like you're saying, if you can learn to use that to go towards the positive, it really can, help you in a number of ways and have a really, really big impact.
Yeah. Cause for me, like I used to build up so much fear inside me, and it would stop me from taking opportunities and getting out of my comfort zone and doing different things. And then, as I said recently, I've learned about it, and I've come to the realization that anxiety and fear is actually signs of things that you should go towards, or signs of things that you haven't not yet dealt with. And the more you expose yourself to it, the more you get used to it, and the more confident that you get. For you, when was that realization that you need to face it head on?
Yeah, it's true what you're saying. It's normally a sign that you need to work on something, isn't it? So for me, the realization was, I guess, I'd been off the rails for a number of years and was abusing alcohol and getting in a lot of trouble. And I just sort of spiraled out of control where, I could barely get out of bed anymore. And it just got to that point where I knew I had to do something about it, and I had to, take some action to get myself, back on track, because I was just, not functioning. So there was a sort of long process from there, and had to work through a whole lot of different, issues with that. But, that was the first real sign of needing to, really, take that step to work through it.
And what do you think kind of led you to build up all that anxiety and all that fear? Do you think, coming from the family that you came with and your dad being the premier put extra pressure on yourself to kind of be more than just the premier's son, like to have your own identity?
It did, for sure, yeah. So it put a lot of pressure on, yeah. I guess growing up being known as a son of this person, um, it puts that pressure on you where you're trying to prove yourself and work out what your own identity is, and find a way to carve that out. So I was pushing myself to sort of extreme levels to try and do that, and yeah, not be known as the son of this person, which I think is probably common in a lot of those kind of scenarios.
Yeah. And I've come from a sporting background as well, and playing rugby league and knowing a lot of players that have had, fathers or brothers or whatever that have played at the top level. There's this expectation of them to also be that really good player, or them to, go to the top as well, and all that added pressure. And I find a lot of the times that they only play the sport because they're seeing that that's the only thing that they can do, and that's what they should do because their family members do it. And it adds a lot of pressure to them, and a lot of the times they don't go all the way, and they become really depressed because society pressure on them that they have to perform, they have to be this person, and it can really take them down a dark path.
Oh, definitely, mate. Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of pressure, and trying to tell yourself that you're not enough unless you achieve a certain thing or perform at a certain level is a recipe for disaster. Really, like you can't sort of, you can't win with that. Even if you do get to that level, you're probably going to always want to push it further. So it's sort of having the realization that you should strive for whatever it is you're trying to achieve, but not base your self-worth and your happiness on having to have that happen for you to then feel like you're enough.
Yeah, do stuff for yourself, not do it for other people, and validation from other people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now we'll go back. There was a car accident that you were involved in. Was that a turning point for you?
That was one of the turning points for sure. Yeah, that happened after, years of drinking and being off the rails. And, that was sort of one of the big turning points where that happened. And I thought, this is just so out of control. I've got to do something. I've got to make a change here and, really look at, reevaluate what I'm doing. And it wasn't the only turning point. It was sort of, after that, I still was, still wasn't, I didn't fully confront things. But it was the beginning of me starting that process of confronting these issues and, starting to move forward. So it was sort of, which is unfortunate that it often takes people a really, dramatic event like that for a change to happen, but it often is what happens.
Yeah, it's always like that when you see death in your eyes. It really makes you realize, wow, like what am I doing in my life? I need to start living it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Because you nearly killed yourself, and then you nearly killed your friend as well, was it?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're both very lucky to survive it. And the police that came to the scene said they had never seen a crash, that bad where anyone had survived. So, we were very lucky that we made it out alive. Um, and yeah, I guess, like I said, it was a wake up call.
Now, obviously, accidents happen every day, but the backlash off the back of that, because of your family and stuff, would have been a lot more higher in the news and the media and all that stuff. How did you kind of deal with all that?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty unusual thing to go through, and yeah, people make mistakes, and yeah, that happened to be, play out in a big way in the media. So I had to just deal with it as it came, and we had media camped out the front of the house for a number of days, and wasn't able to, leave the house, and the family was, brought into the media, and a whole lot of things came out of it. So it was pretty a tough situation and something that um, I was just trying to deal with one step at a time, and had my family to support me as well. And it's a unique situation, but you sort of get through it.
And what were your next steps to kind of real turn your life around and get on the right path?
The next steps were, well, it was a long process. It was
Yeah.
sort of, after that, it was, getting back for going back in. I was like sort of didn't really confront the issue, and it took me time. It just took time to sort of work through it, and eventually I went back to university and gradually sort of started working through things, and piecing things back together, and having to confront things. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was really struggling just to motivate myself to do anything at that point. But I got into this course at university, and we had to do a lot of public speaking in the course. So that was really tough for me at the time, because I was, afraid to look someone in the eye and just have a conversation with them, and I was afraid of my own shadow. So doing these talks in front of anyone was, pretty confronting to me. So these were only in front of 5 people, and I'd be turning up and, vomiting before I'd go and do the actual talk, and, just really struggling. And it was the beginning, though, of me having to confront things and gradually work through it, and, led to me ultimately taking that path to, getting things on track again.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I hated public speaking and I would get so sick before it and just vomit. But
Yeah, right.
as we mentioned, the more you expose yourself, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So we just
Exactly.
keep putting in the reps. That's all we can do, really.
Exactly, mate. That's all you can really do. Just keep. I think that's the only way to get over anything, really. It's sort of, there's no quick fix solution. It's about just confronting it, like you were saying earlier. You got to confront things and confront fears, and take those first steps. And once you start doing that, things will start to unfold.
Do you reflect on how far that you've come? Obviously before not being able to do much public speaking, now you're an actor and jumping on podcasts all the time and news. And do you reflect and go, wow, like look at how much I've achieved so far?
Sometimes, normally I don't, to be honest. I sort of sometimes do, but normally I'm, I still fall into the trap of putting a lot of pressure on myself, and feeling probably frustrated with, the things I'm trying to achieve and get myself to. So a lot of that, but yeah, I do sometimes try and reflect and, look back at, because I think when you do that, it's like gratitude, you realize, oh, well, it's not, it's about your own personal journey and all the cliche sort of things. It's like about not about what other people are doing or comparison. It's about what you've had to overcome and how far you've come and trying to just better yourself. So I do try and remind myself as much as I can, but if I'm honest, I definitely work in this area and I'm talking about this stuff, but I still fall victim to it a lot of the time and put pressure on myself and try and want to do things that sort of getting frustrated with things. So I think it's pretty normal, but you got to, I think having the awareness about it is one of the important things.
Yeah, it's just about being self-aware, and it's something that I'm trying to implement as well, because I go through periods, probably same as you achieve something or you do something new and you just go, okay, what's next? What can I do next to get better and to grow? But
exactly,
when you actually sit back and you reflect, like for me, starting this podcast, I couldn't even have a conversation with someone new because my anxiety would shoot through the roof. And now I'm here talking to you and other people and having conversations. And when I look back at that, I'm like, that's only been within the last, year and a half, 2 years. And like the amount of growth that you can gain in that short period of time, like people really underestimate that and they stay in their comfort zones, but really you should just be jumping out and diving face first into it, because you'll be amazed on how much you can achieve and what you can actually do in your life and grow as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think people do, underestimate. And the hardest thing is just starting. It's sort of, taking that first step and starting the process. And if you can do that, everything will unfold from there. So it's often just, not overthinking it, not thinking too far ahead, just thinking what's the first step. And all we ever have is that next step in front of us. What's the next step for me to take is, a good way to approach it, I think.
Yeah, it's just that first step and then gaining momentum and putting in the reps every day.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly.
Now, anxiety for you, what are your kind of tips and tricks that you kind of deal with it all?
I mean, for me, I exercise every day, which I think is, personally for me, that's the most important thing. And, I guess coming from a professional sporting background, I've, been, it's been a big part of my life. And I think it's like huge, the benefits that, movement and physical exercise have for mental health. So, that's a really big one. I meditate every day. I do gratitude journaling. And I think staying connected with, people and friends and having people close to you is really important as well. So, there's some things that I really try and focus on and do in my day-to-day life. And it really helps me. And I think, doing things that are outside of yourself as well. I think we can often get too caught up in our head and, thinking on a small level and, reminding ourselves that there's so many other things out there and getting out of our head, whatever can do that. So, and I think like often you can get caught up in your thoughts and it's just breaking that pattern. So it might be just getting up if you're working and your mind's, clogged up, getting up and going for a walk or just breaking the routine really does help as well.
Yeah, just shocking the system. Cold showers are great for that.
Yeah, cold showers are really good for it.
And when did you jump into the mental health advocacy and why did you want to do that?
Well, I've been doing it for I don't know, 12 years, and I didn't plan on it. I fell into it, I guess. From what I'd talked about before, from what I'd been through, and as I was working through all of these issues that I'd been going through, I was on a reality television show, and I got the opportunity to work with a charity, and I was working with Beyond Blue at the time, and that led to me getting asked to talk at schools, and then it just sort of opened up that door where I was like, I was starting to realize how big of an issue it was and how many people it affects, and it really opened my eyes to the issue and to I started becoming more and more passionate about it, and it organically led from there. So I didn't really intend on making it a big part of my career. It was something I just wanted to advocate for, and it just naturally sort of built. And I kept getting asked to do these talks, and companies are asking me to do it, and I just became passionate about it and kept doing it. So yeah, it was an organic thing.
Yeah, the more you look into the mental health space and talk to people, the more you realize how real it actually is, and how often it happens, whether it be, anxiety or deep depression or suicide. Everyone goes through a mental health struggle and just maybe on different levels. And that I initially didn't start this podcast to be around mental health. I was quite naive to it all until I started speaking to a lot of people and hearing their stories. I was like, oh, wow, like a lot of people do struggle with these things, and there's a stigma around it. I'm like, why is there a stigma when everyone goes through it? So
Yeah, exactly.
that's something that I'm trying to break that barrier and make people realize that, hey, everyone goes through it. You're not special. Mental health doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care how old you are, what color you are, what gender, whatever the case may be. It doesn't discriminate, because, you can be a professional athlete or top business, high profile person and still go through mental health battles. Yet people don't believe that. They think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to them. They're living the good life. But in reality it happens to everyone.
Exactly. It doesn't matter who you are. Yeah, I mean, we're all human. It's like saying that I'm not going to have any physical problems in my entire life. It's like, unless it's impossible to avoid. And if you're a human, you're going to have some sort of, you might not suffer from clinical depression, or you might not have, something that acute happen, but you will have ups and downs, and you'll have to deal with emotions and mental health related issues for sure. So it is crazy that it's not talked about when it's like such a core part of life. It's just such a big part of what we have to deal with every day.
Yeah. And on mental health and suicide, why do you think there is suicide in our society now?
I mean, there always has been suicide. It's talked about more now. I think it's sadly something that happens, and people suffer to that level. I think it's probably increased a little bit. I mean, it's hard to measure because it's more talked about and reported now. So we sort of can see it, but I think probably things like the pace of the world that we live in, social media, and different things are contributing to it. But I think the reason it happens is people, again, they don't have the education about it. They don't have the tools in place. A lot of it's preventative. So if you don't have those preventative tools in place, and you get to that point where you're suffering on such a severe level, then it can lead to that. So it's really important that we talk about it, that we educate people, that we embed programs and systems into schools and organizations so people can learn it. Because otherwise, it can lead to that. And a lot of men, suicide is much higher in men. So, men traditionally haven't felt comfortable talking about emotions and mental health, and we need to educate men that it's okay to talk about it. So it's that there's still a lot of stigma around that, and a lot of men that don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, it's about changing the meaning of masculinity. Like before, it's be all strong and not talk about your feelings and all that kind of stuff. But you can still be strong and talk about your feelings, because it actually takes a lot more strength to be vulnerable.
Exactly. It really does. It takes much more strength, and people need to understand that it's not a weakness. It's just being honest. Really, it's being open and honest, and there's power in that, and it shouldn't be something that people are afraid of doing.
Yeah, because people are not mind readers. They're not going to know if you're going through a tough time or not. So if you are, really need to reach out for the help so people can actually help you. And, even if you're just reaching out to a friend, because, sometimes you're not looking for a solution. Sometimes you're just looking for someone to be there for you while you talk about your issues and your feelings and just get stuff off your chest. And you don't need that solution. You just want someone there for you, but you're not going to have that person there if you don't reach out for it.
Exactly. Totally. That's the thing, and it's a good point. People often just want someone to talk to and vent to, and be able to talk about it. And sometimes there is no solution, but at least having someone to talk things through with can really help, and can help guide you to just try and get perspective on whatever it is that you're dealing with.
And on the other side of that, if you are that person that's there for the and being the listener, you got to really listen. And I feel as men, if we're that listeners, we have the habit of trying to find a solution, trying to fix everything. And I kind of relate this back to when you're dealing with females, because they just like to talk, they like to vent. They just want you to listen. They don't want you to fix anything. They don't want solutions. And it's kind of the same when you're talking about mental health. You just kind of got to listen.
Yeah, exactly. You got to listen. You can't force someone to make a change. You got to just listen and maybe offer some advice or your own thoughts, but you can't force someone to do anything really. And if you do that, it's probably going to lead to them, going the other way and having an adverse reaction.
Exactly. It's like you can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Exactly. Yeah, so true.
And the whole suicide thing's interesting. Like we mentioned before, it probably comes down to the fast pace of society and the pressures and all that stuff. And, it probably has been around for a long time. But in Australia, our Indigenous population is amongst the highest of suicide rates. And I was speaking to, I had someone on the podcast and we were talking about Indigenous culture and the history of Australia and that. And he was saying out of 2.5 dialects of, Indigenous language, they didn't have a word for suicide. Now they have a word, they have a story for everything that happens and has happened, but no suicide until, England came to Australia and took over. And he mentioned, it's just like in their culture, there's no pressures, there's no hustle and bustle. They eat when they eat, they do whatever the hell they want, and they're a massive community and they love each other and they're for each other. Whereas today, a lot of us are just for ourselves.
Yeah.
We care about ourselves, we just care about our goals, and pressure gets to us, and when we don't achieve something, we put even more pressure on ourselves and we go into depression. And it's quite interesting how Western civilization has kind of brought on all this kind of suicides and mental health stuff.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a big symptom of that, which it is. Like you're saying, it's kind of crazy. And it's like I'm here in America at the moment, and it's this place is built on capitalism, and that's where a lot of this Western culture has come from this mindset of accumulating and acquiring and building a career and working your way up the ladder. And it definitely we're taught that that's what the definition of success is. So then we're constantly striving to move our way up the ladder and push ourselves and try and and there's a million different decisions we could make every day. And people might think, they might get somewhere in their career and think, but I could have done this, or what if I could achieve this? And you look at a million other things and it's never ending, and that leads to overwhelm and depression, and like you're saying, in extreme cases, suicide. So it is very much part of Western culture, and unfortunately, that's not going to change anytime soon. So people need to understand, how can I maintain balance within living in this society. And it's not about saying one thing's right or one thing is wrong. It's let's try and achieve and do things that we want to do and push ourselves and do all that sort of thing, but keep healthy in the process of doing it, by doing these things that you can implement daily into your life. I think it's a really important thing.
Yeah, it's just about balance and having a healthy routine. Like, focus on your goals, but at the same time, focus on yourself, both mentally and physically, and focus on your family members, because it's all good to achieve all these great things in life, but it's kind of lonely if you're doing it by yourself. You want to be able to have people around you to celebrate and love you and all that stuff as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Having people around you, it's so important, isn't it? You want to make sure you're maintaining, close friendships and family and all that kind of thing. And I think a lot of people, think they have a lot of friends, and they might have like, 1 million followers on Instagram, and, they, all these people that they know. And if they had a party tomorrow night, they could have, 200 people show up, and they think that means they've got all these connections and friends and whatever. And that might mean popularity, but that's not proper friends and connections. So to have that, you can only have sort of a handful of, really close friends at a time, because it takes maintenance. It takes time to like connect and really get to know someone. And I think that's where we lack. It's that weird juxtaposition in this day and age where we feel more connected than ever through technology, because we can talk to anyone anywhere in the world. Right now I'm in New York and you're in Australia, and we're doing this podcast. So technology makes everything so connected, but then people often mistake that for real connections, and having those people that are close to you and there to support you day to day and that you can support. And that's more important than anything. If you don't have that, there's going to be a pretty big hole in your life, and it's one of the most important things.
100%. And like social media is a great tool, but a lot of us seek validation from it, whether that be from likes, comments, messages, whatever the case may be. And, we feel like we place our identity on that. Like, yeah, I got a million followers or whatever, I'm so popular. But then what happens when they lose all those followers? They go into a dark spot and they feel like they're not worth anything because they've, made their whole life and their identity and validation around that social media platform.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's like social media is, a big example of it, but it really happens in anything, absolutely anything, and it's human nature as well. It's sort of like not making yourself feel bad for being like that or for that happening, but more trying to think, how can I navigate this or find a middle ground where, sure, if I'm becoming an influencer and building a career, and making all this money, having millions of followers, good on you, go for it. Try and capitalize the hell out of that and build some foundations from it. But, do it with the knowledge that this is not who you are. That's not your identity. That's an extension of, your work. And that's just one thing, and it's not going to be there forever, which is fine. Enjoy it while you can. But what happens more often than not is what you're talking about, where people attach their identity to it. You get addicted to that sensation of, being popular or being validated or having people know who you are. And, you want more and more of it. And then when it dies off, they have breakdowns. And, like I was saying, you see it in any walk of life. You see it with athletes. There's a documentary about professional athletes and, the depression that came after it. And Michael Phelps was actually on there talking about, he's the most successful Olympian in history. And he was suicidal after his career because, and people would think, hang on, this guy like made all this money, he's famous, he's won like whatever it was, 20 gold medals, or I can't remember how many, but something crazy. And he wanted to kill himself. And he talks, good on him that he talks openly about it and he's shining a light on that. But, what it showed was if you're attaching your identity to this thing, for an athlete, I'm attaching my identity to the be all end all of my career is if I win a gold medal, that's going to be, the pinnacle. And then everything will be better after that because, that's like going to validate me forever. And then they get there and they feel good for a while, but then it's like, hang on, I'm still have to wake up every morning and live my life and do things every day. And I don't feel any different. I've got this thing, but that's not me. It's like, it's kind of like this where I think having success before you've been able to do the work on yourself can be a negative thing. And you see that in the entertainment industry, and you get all these young entertainers that go off the rails because they have success too fast and then they can't handle it. And, it's like something that I think it goes back to early education. If we can be taught this stuff in school and properly taught how to manage our emotions and, talk about it and have these conversations, we're going to prevent a lot of issues down the track.
Exactly. And if you're not happy within yourself, it doesn't matter what you achieve or what items you have, you're not going to be fulfilled.
No, you can't be. Exactly. You're never going to be fulfilled.
And like so many people are just chasing that dopamine hit and that instant gratification, and that comes with social media. And a lot of people,
it's hard, mate.
Yeah, a lot of people blame social media, but social media is just the tool. It's how you use it. If you're using it in that way, well, you can't blame it. It's how you're using it.
Well, you can't because, it's like saying I blame, cocaine for becoming addicted to that, or I blame alcohol for being addicted to alcohol. It's sort of, there's been different vices there forever. I mean, social media is a new one. Probably the tricky thing with social media more so is it's so embedded now in our daily lives and it's built to be addictive. And we often use it directly to, promote or push our careers. So it's very hard to navigate. But that's the same with many things. So again, it is. And I think the problem with it is it's still a relatively new thing. All of these, technology's gone crazy in the last 10 years and it's still, at such a rapid rate. It's hard to keep up. TikTok's a new one where I just launched a book, and been working with a PR company, and they're sort of, trying to get me to go on TikTok to promote. And I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know if I can do it, because like, I'm just like, I can't be bothered. Like, this is crazy. And I didn't really know much about it. And you're like, I started looking into it, and there's like these, 15-year-old girls that don't have any talent. They've just danced or done a few things, and they've got, 50 million followers, and they're buying houses and doing all these weird things. And so what has the world come to? It's bizarre. And people are now striving for that, especially in that generation. They're the celebrities they're looking up to. So I don't even know what point I'm trying to make with it. It's just, it's I think just reiterating, what we're talking about, that I think we need to, be educated and taught proper values. So we realize that, and again, nothing against those people buying houses off TikTok, but we shouldn't be aspiring. That shouldn't be what we're aspiring for, because like, what you're adding sort of some entertainment to the world a little bit, but I don't know. It's kind of crazy where things have gone.
Where we're placing, material things, money, being famous on top instead of, happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to become famous for the sake of becoming famous. Like if you're famous as a byproduct of what you're doing, that's a different thing. Like as a podcaster, I guess, you look at Joe Rogan, he's, probably, or he is number one, and he's famous now, but like, that's like, respectful, because the guy went and, actually he didn't try to be famous from it. He just tried to make a good podcast. And, you see that in any field, the people that make the top, that get the recognition, it's like, but they didn't do the thing to become famous. They, so that's how it should be. But now it's like this weird warped thing where people want instant gratification, and I want to go on TikTok and, pose half naked and do some weird thing and shake my ass or whatever, and hope that gives me millions of followers. And it's like, what the hell has the world come to?
Yeah, we're looking for the quick fix. And like on Joe Rogan, like when he started, like he's been doing it for 7+ years or so. But
Longer,
he was,
like over 10 years.
Yeah. And he was just going like this, and then just putting in the reps every year. And then he slowly grew. And now this is where he is. And it's taken so much time. Yet people are not prepared to put that work in these days. They want the overnight success. But really
they want the exactly. It's like, if you're, and even if you can get overnight success, it's like, why do you want it? You're not going to be you're actually not going to be happy, even if you do get the material reward from it. That'll be fun for a bit, but you're not going to be properly fulfilled unless you have to, you get reward by having to put effort into something. I know when I competed in sport, I loved the training, and I loved pushing myself, and I loved that feeling of knowing that I had pushed, and it wasn't about what anyone else was doing or where I actually, where I came in competition compared to other people. The thing I enjoyed was in my mind of looking at how can I continually push my own mind to get that one step further, and that personal feeling of satisfaction that you were able to overcome adversity and pain, and push yourself to that level. And I think that's what's enjoyable about anything, like you doing a podcast and pushing through it, or pursuing acting. For me, it's like auditioning and failing, and keep having that the resilience to push through it and eventually get something, and then it's so rewarding. That's what it should be about.
Exactly. And overnight success doesn't last. They have this massive high, and then they always come crashing down, and they end up with depression and mental health stuff, because they thought they were on top of the world. They thought that they achieved so much, but in reality they didn't do anything.
No, exactly. And I look at it like overnight success is, it's like if you're going to build a house, it's like, if you want to do it properly, you got to build some really strong foundations and spend a lot of time making sure everything is done properly. And if you take your time and you build it properly, no matter what's thrown at it, it's gonna be pretty stable, and it's gonna stay there. And that's like putting in those 10 years of work into your career to build that foundation. And then once you get there, it's so rock solid, and you've got such a reputation and such an audience that it'll stay. But then if you do get this overnight success. It's like just whacking together some cheap, crappy home, and sure, you might be able to live in it for, a few months, but it's probably going to fall apart. And it's I think it's a good way to look at it.
Yep, just one brick at a time. Now, you got your book. I actually bought it. It came this week, so I have not read it yet, but I had a flick through.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had a flick through, and it looks like a very practical book, which is my type of book. I love it. It has tips and tricks and stuff. What made you want to bring out a book?
And appreciate you buying it, mate. I've got it here as well. I actually got offered the publishing deal during COVID, and I guess being in the mental health space and running, doing talks, running programs, and all the stuff I do through my business, it made sense. And it was something I thought about a while ago, because I thought, well, I've got all these experts and content and, the knowledge that I've acquired, and sort of something was a natural sort of transition from what I've been doing. So when it was just the right timing, and it was a publishing company I wanted to work with, and especially, being during COVID, I was back in Australia living at my mum and dad's and had a lot of time. So it was kind of the perfect time for me to write it, because I was able to just sit there and, hyper focus and push it out. So yeah, it finally came out in August this year, and we've just launched it globally this week in, the US, UK, Canada, through Europe. So pushing it over here now. So it's good to have it out there. And if anyone's interested in purchasing it or looking into it, you can go on Booktopia or Amazon in Australia, or Amazon overseas, or if you just go to my website, nickbracks.com, all of the links come up. And you can, if you sign up, you get a free chapter, or we've got a free resources on there that you can download. So if you want to look into it, you can just go to nickbracks.com to find any information about it.
Awesome. Well, it's my next read on the list, and I can't wait to read it. As I said, I love practical books. I love that you can read the information and then also go ahead and implement it.
Yeah, appreciate it, mate. Well, yeah, look forward to seeing what you think about it.
Awesome. And as we start to wrap up this podcast, I've got a few last questions for you. What does having a better life mean to you?
To me, a better life is really simple. It's not about, I mean, the word perfection, I don't think that exists anyway, but it's about just always staying curious and learning and trying to grow as much as you can. So not getting everything right, making a lot of mistakes, but always just trying to push yourself to be better is really all that it means to me.
And how do you define success?
I'd say success is happiness. And what's happiness? Happiness isn't, this high or this, achievement or a job or, whatever it is. Happiness is contentment, feeling at peace, knowing, what you stand for, being aligned with your, purpose and your values, and really living with integrity and, living a life that you can be really proud of.
I love that. And last question, when your time's all up and done on this earth, what would you like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for hopefully, just having helped as many people as I could, and making an impact in this area of mental health, and having hopefully, through the work that I've done, the conversations I've had, contributed in some way to a change happening, and being seen for really dedicating a lot of my time to doing that.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast, man. I'm really grateful for you taking some time out of your day to chat with me, and it's been a great chat.
No problem, mate. Thank you for doing it. I'm sorry I had to make you get up so early this morning to do it, and apologies about the internet issue in Vancouver, but I'm glad we got there. I had to fly all the way back to New York to do it. I'm not joking, but yeah, thank you, mate. I'm glad we got to do it.
It's all good. And for the listeners, where's the best place to find you on social media?
So on Instagram, that's probably the main one. I'm just Nick Bracks on there. That's my handle. On Facebook, the same thing, Nick Bracks. I think Twitter, probably the same. So anyway, Instagram, Nick Bracks. And yeah, you can just go to my website, like I said before, nickbracks.com, all the links for social media there and all the other information and the stuff on the book. So that's probably the best place to go if you want to learn more.
Awesome. Appreciate it once again. And for all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you got some value out of this episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and check out what Nick's doing. Buy his book as well. I'll let you guys know what I think about it. But yeah, see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.